Time now for my political panel, Liberal MP Jason Falinski and Labor Senator Jenny McAllister. Look, Jason Falinski, I just want to begin talking about that issue. This is a pretty serious allegation and I think goes to the heart of, the way taxpayers feel about the way politicians use their hard-earned cash. Why is the government just refuting this rather than establishing an investigation?
Hi, PK. What I can say to you is that, yeah, I agree with you that this is not what people expect us to do with their money. We're here to obviously make sure that Australians are better off. Our job should be to advance ideas and advance policies that make Australia a better place to live, that give people more opportunities, not fewer opportunities. And the allegations that were aired, which I have to say, Michael has denied and has been investigated once before, are very serious allegations. And I understand that they're part of a legal case at the moment. I'm not sure where all that sits. But yeah, I effectively agree with your underlying sentiment on this.
Yeah, because it is really serious. You're right, it's been investigated by the Finance Department, but that's just once, and it's the Finance Department. It seems to me that it warrants a more serious investigation, particularly given public trust is so important on these matters. Do you think the government should launch some sort of investigation into this again?
Well, I'm not. The answer to that question is I don't know. My sense of this is that it's before the courts at the moment. I somewhat disagree with you. I think Finance Department investigations are quite serious matters.
Okay, but there's obviously more evidence now, right? If you watch the 60 Minutes,
which are part of legal.
Okay.
Yeah, which are part of legal proceedings.
And it's really serious stuff. I mean, doesn't it just demonstrate that we need a Federal ICAC and that there is a sense of urgency around this?
Oh, sure. As you know, I'm a supporter of an oversight body, an integrity commission, an independent commission, whatever you wish to call it, because it does actually protect decision makers as well as hold them to account. So it is something that I think we should do. It is something that I know that we will be doing, and the argument is around the model at the moment.
Jenny McAllister, you heard there what Jason Falinski said. Obviously, he agrees it's serious, but do you think the government's dealing with it in a way that's satisfactory?
It is 1,000 days since Scott Morrison grudgingly promised Australians that there would be a Federal Anti-Corruption Commission. And this case really goes to the reasons why it matters. It also points to, I suspect, some of the reasons why Scott Morrison has been so slow to act. A Federal Anti-Corruption Commission should have powers that would allow a much more robust investigation of this matter than anything the Department of Finance could ever come up with. Our view is that it should have essentially the powers of a standing royal commission. It should be able to investigate serious and systemic corruption. And if something like this happened, it is the sort of thing that should be referred to a body like this.
And yet it doesn't exist, so it can't be referred to a body like this. So in the absence of that, Jason Falinski, and you mentioned these legal proceedings, you are correct, should Michael Soukas step aside while this unfolds?
Well, I think people are entitled to a presumption of innocence.
Stepping aside doesn't mean you're guilty. It means that you're stepping aside while something gets settled. Well,
I understand that, PK, but I do think that we then get into a situation where if every allegation, no matter how founded or unfounded it is, people have to step aside, we'd need to get a whole bunch of new people in just to step in. Look, they're questions of judgment. Michael has denied this. He has been through one investigation. I understand that people in the Labor Party don't think that investigation was thorough enough. It's a matter of legal proceedings. I think we should let this play out and that people are entitled to a presumption of innocence while these things play out.
Look, Jenny McAllister, I know you're in New South Wales, but actually some of these issues have been raised in the Victorian IBAC today, in your own party. Moving on to what Labor power broker Adam Somyurek has said, he says that he believes that that the Premier in Victoria was, was aware basically, or knew that this kind of staff using staffers to basically do political work for the Labor Party was going on. Does that alarm you?
Look, let's start from the beginning. It is really important that this has been referred to the ICAC. There are going to be claims and counterclaims, as we've seen already, and it's why the ICAC really matters. It's the body that's able to sort through the claims and counterclaims and come to a landing about what has happened. But what in Victoria, there has actually been decisive action to deal with the things that are in the party's control. Anthony Albanese, as you recall, basically stood down the branch leadership, asked Jenny Macklin and Steve Bracks to step in as administrators. They've undertaken a very thorough and systematic review of the integrity of the branch roles. That process commenced more than a year ago. And it stands in real contrast to the way that Mr Morrison has dealt with the case of Mr Sukkar. We don't see any similar kind of action, no sense that it's serious. We see him dragging his feet on establishing a national anti-corruption body and essentially working with Mr Sukkar to actually prevent information about the Department of Finance investigation coming into the public domain. These are very different approaches to quite serious issues, and I think it's emblematic of a government that really is quite afraid of scrutiny.
Yeah, I suppose we still wait, Jason Falinski, to hear what might happen in relation to a federal ICAC. Do you think this should happen immediately, that the government should actually start, doing something on this? We've heard by the end of the year, but we still actually don't know if it's gone through Cabinet. Very scant details.
Look, I think we need to be very careful. I mean, Jenny's in New South Wales. I'm in New South Wales. We've seen what happens when you get the model wrong. We've seen the sort of horrible injustices that can be perpetrated upon innocent people, as has occurred in New South Wales over and over again. So it's not a matter of, look, yes, we need one. Yes, it would have been great if we had one before, but let us not make time the enemy of the good. So these things, I don't know where they're up to. I do know that there have been models before Cabinet already, that a lot of work has been done and it will be presented to Parliament shortly, and those reasons behind it will be there. So, yeah.
Okay. Just want to move on to Australia's contribution to major climate talks in Glasgow. They've been labelled a great disappointment by the United Kingdom's top government advisor on climate change, who accused Prime Minister Scott Morrison of failing to understand the urgency of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Just staying with you, Jason, it's a pretty strong rebuke of your government's commitment. Yes, net zero by 2050 in the forward years. That's many elections away. In the interim, not a lot of action.
Oh, well, I dispute that, PK. I think that we've already seen a lot of action by the federal government, by this country, bluntly. And we have reduced our emissions by 20%. We will have reduced them by 35% according to the projections. Hopefully that will be even higher. We've got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline, a lot of good technology coming down the pipeline that can be used both here and around the world. I saw those comments a couple of weeks ago by Lord Bidden. I frankly found them offensive. I couldn't really understand what his complaint was about what Australia had done or not done. There just seems to be this general sense from him over many, many years that he is opposed to the action that we've taken under both governments, frankly. And I don't quite understand what more he would like to see us do, or why he singles us out for special attention while ignoring the efforts of so many other countries around the world that are not within cooee of what we've managed to achieve here. And I don't say that as a political sense of, oh, look what the Liberal Party's achieved versus the Labor Party. It's been under both political parties.
Jenny McAllister, obviously that criticism is quite pointed at Australia. Is it justified?
The Prime Minister has spent the last few years, and previous Liberal Prime Ministers before him have spent 8 years frightening Australians about the future of a low-carbon transition. They said it would put a wrecking ball through the economy. Now they expect to be taken seriously when they turn up to Glasgow, unwilling to update their 2030 targets. Of course the international community is frustrated with this behaviour, and I think Australia Australians are too. There are so many opportunities available to us, but communities and businesses need certainty to plan for this transition. And this government, all we've had is politics. It's very hard to take Mr Morrison seriously with this very late conversion to the cause.
Okay, just finally, we're about to speak with the Doherty Institute about this idea of testing to stay at school rather than getting young children, as has happened to some very sad Melbourne kids who haven't been able to go back to school because they're back in isolation after being in homeschooling for so long. Rapid antigen testing, checking every day so they can stay at school. Jason Falinski, is it something that all states and territories should adopt?
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. And we should have done it, frankly, months ago. You know, what we have done to school children over this last 18 months, I think is incredibly regrettable. And in the years to come, we will look back on it as something, you know, certainly in the first lockdown, I understand we didn't know enough. We didn't know what we didn't know. But the last 6 to 9 months, it really has boggled my mind, the way that we've dealt with this situation.
What do you think, Jenny? Should that be the approach, testing to stay at school?
Look, I actually don't know the detail of that proposal, Patricia, and I can't really comment on how it will work from a public health perspective. I do know that in my community, the kids and the parents are immensely happy to be back at school. It's a pretty big part of a child's social development, and we should be doing everything we can to make sure that kids can get back to school, be safe, be healthy, and be with their friends.
Yeah, very important part of their being. That's absolutely true. Yeah. Thank you to both of you. Liberal MP Jason Falinski and Labor Senator Jenny McAllister joining me here on Afternoon.